Recording in progress.
Good morning. And we are going to, as Karen said earlier, have some people who start the church and then people who came on a little bit later in the church. But before we do that, I really like to thank all of you who came to Terry's service yesterday, and especially Sue Burnell and Kristen Crookshanks, I think, who headed up the Women of Faith providing the food and all that stuff. It was amazing. It was fabulous. Yes. And some people got to take home sandwiches, and yeah, there was tons. Yeah, you fed your whole family, I think, last night, didn't you? Yeah. And, oh yeah, spaghetti, okay. And we have some guests here today. Well, they're not guests, they're returning. Who did you bring with you today?
I brought my oldest grandson, William. Stand up, William. Look how tall he is. He's 5'10", and his little brother, who is sprouting big time, Wyatt Black. And if any of you were here, they were really here a lot. I gave them their children's message, didn't I? I did your children's message all the time. And she did Sunday school, yeah.
So they now live on the Western Slope. Thank you, guys. And so they're here visiting. And then our good friend Dick Purswell we've been trying to get him to come. And he is here today. And he's like, okay, I'll come. So here he is. He really helped us build our sunroom and remodel our house. And then we became really good friends, so he comes over for nuclear coffee, is what he calls it. Because the first time we fed him that, I guess it was really hot, and he's like, oh my God, nuclear coffee. So thank you. Thanks for coming, Dick. Yeah. And also, Melissa sent me an email this morning. Hey, are we doing anything for Pastor Appreciation Sunday? And I'm like, well, Karen's here, and we're going to appreciate her now. Yep. And then next week, maybe we can have a little formal appreciation of our pastors, since the other pastor is not here. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is just turn this over to Sandy first. I'm going to first knock a few things over. Sandy's going to talk about opening the church and why she was here and why she's back and all that good stuff, and whatever else you want to talk about. I know you and Mary Beth talk, so here you go.
Yep.
You want a chair, or are you good? Get up here so the Zoomers can see you.
Mary Beth and I talked on the phone the other day. She called me. It was a long conversation.
I'm sure.
Golly, it was in 2007 when William and Wyatt's mom and dad got married, and Terry Todd came up to Breckenridge and presided over their wedding, and that was my first real introduction. So some of you have known her for years and years and years. Me, just since 2007. So then it was a couple of years, and then honestly, I wasn't even going to church right then. So shortly after that, I started going to church in Parker, and she called one day and said, how about you come to a meeting we're having about starting a church in Elizabeth? Oh, and then she said, I called Katie. Katie's coming. And I called Phyllis, who's Katie's mother. Phyllis is coming. Okay, I'll be there. So on a Friday evening in January, this will be hard. We had a meeting, an all-evening meeting, and then the next day it was an all-day event. And that evening, in the middle of the night, Krista called and said, Mom, Krista's our middle daughter. She said, Travis is dead. And I will shiver and carry that with me forever. Who was her husband, our son-in-law, who was our second, third son. You know, one son, lad was a son. When you get married in our family, baby, you become one of us. So my first call the next morning, Terry Todd. I said, Terry, can you come? So Terry was with us almost that whole week. And then I finally, at the end of the week, said she had found somebody for grief counseling, and I took Krista in to meet this woman, and I didn't go in. We just went together, and when she came out, she said, "She's real nice, Mom, but I don't want to come into Denver." Okay. So when we got home, I talked to Terry, and I said, "Terry, why don't you do her grief counseling?" And she, kind of like me when I said, "How about helping with the church?" She said, "Well, you know what? I'm still grieving my husband, whom I'd never met. I didn't even know. And I think he'd only been gone a few years at the time. But anyway, okay," she said, "I'll do it." I don't know how many times they met, a couple, 2 or 3 times a week for several weeks, and then less and less. But she saved my daughter's life. There's no doubt in my mind. So for me, then, that started a faith journey that had begun as a baby in a little Methodist church in Ohio. But this lesson that Mary Beth and I talked about the other day, this whole faith is not something that you wake up one day and said, "That's it. I'm going to believe in God, and that's all there is to it. I don't have to worry about anything else. Jesus is my Savior, my Lord." Because that's not how it is. It's still not how it is. Whole faith is what I want. Whole faith is what I'd love to have. I'd love to be the woman of this church who says, "I believe," and no one would ever doubt me. It won't happen. And I don't think any of you could think it would happen to you either. If you do, more power to you. Stand up here and be part of us. But this whole faith stuff is really, really important because it's an ongoing issue. Those 2 young boys back there, the older ones become involved in a youth group up in Gypsum. He's 13. Good for him. Will he stick with it forever? I don't know. But will he come back to it? Sure he will. I did. I'm here. So I can't even remember now what Mary Beth and I talked about. I jotted things down. But now you know one of the reasons why I chose to come. I like Terry. Why I chose to stay. I love Terry. I loved the message she gave me from this church. Somebody who was talking about her dressing up as an old woman. Who was that yesterday? Debbie Hooten? That. I can still remember Kenny, were you here that day? Yeah, he was. We can remember her walking in here, and she started the service and left. And then all of a sudden, this old woman was sitting up here in a chair, and you didn't know. We knew who it was. And her faith, she's probably the one person I will believe had whole faith. That's all there is to it. She knew what she wanted. She knew who wanted her. And she gave and gave and gave. So for me, the lesson is learned. I have to continue to give. I have to continue to help. I have to be here. It's part of who we are. You're raised Methodist, and my mom is saying, "I can't believe you're up there talking again." But Mary would be here if it were her instead of me, because that's how I was raised. But this church has meant, I know how much it means to you guys. I know how much it means to all of you. I'd like to tell you it means more to me, but that's not true. It means something to all of us in its own way. So give what you can. Come, be here, do what you can. If it can't be money, but it can be, whose the idea was to do who's making the bracelets? Is it her idea? I guess I didn't realize that. So, we're doing things that we think people will want. And by golly, when they come, they say, "I want that." Yes, I do. So reach into your heart and find those things that Christ is telling you to give.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next.
So for those of you who didn't know, Sandy was here. She and Kenny were both here, and then they moved to Kansas. And when they came back. Yeah. because I think the community of this church is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Okay, now I have to look at my notes because I'm the one who came later on in this church. And those of you who were here yesterday at Terry's, heard my little story about the backpack and why I walked in and Terry had on a backpack and no shoes, and I'm like, I came in to tell Deb something, and I went, I think I'm going to stay, and I haven't left. So, she gave a sermon that day that really touched me. It's like, excuse me, was that a funny? Did you bring a funny back there, Deb? Okay. And it had to do with how much baggage do you carry around with you? And she started pulling this stuff out of her backpack. It was stuff. Do I need this really? No, I don't need this. So she just, it was very relevant to me, and that's kind of how this started. Because I really didn't think organized faith was relevant to me. And then I came here and with Deb and Terry and people, and then I got encouraged to come to a Bible study, right? Encouraged. And Clint Crookshanks was there, and Bruce, the guy and Susan was there, quite a few, yeah. And they started asking all these questions that I didn't think was legal to ask, well, how can that be? And why is that true? And I'm mad about this. And I'm like, oh my God, I have these same questions. And I can ask them, and I'm not a bad person. And there's no one right way to pray. I can pray my way, you can pray your way. So anyways, but Terry was very patient and kind, and she never made me feel like I had to have all the answers, and welcomed my questions, and told me that was part of my growth as a Christian or as a person. And this place had something different from anything I've ever known. And I stay here for the people that are here. This is my community. Everybody that comes to church, Connie keeps saying, those people are so nice there. Those people are so nice. And we are nice, and we are accepting of all. Let's see here. Mary Beth took notes while I was talking, and so she wrote them all down here. So I began to feel like a purpose. And when Reverend Terry got sick and we had COVID and all that stuff, I said, I just said to myself, I am just not ready to let this go away. What can I do to make a difference? And so I said, Marcia, can I help you? She said, yes, please. And so we ended up helping Terry a lot and kind of writing some of the sermons, not really writing them, but assisting Terry in organization and different things like that. And so that's kind of, I just felt this deep conviction that this church needed to stay. It didn't need to go away. And so that's kind of where I came from. But I've discovered, like Sandy was saying, the thing about whole faith, and it's not perfect. It's not one way. It's not a right way or a wrong way. It's whole faith with not what you do here in church, but what you do outside of church and how you treat people. And being a school teacher for 30-some years, that was what I don't want to say taught, but what I put out there for the kids and for them to get to know each other as people, not just, a jock or a hippie or whatever the things were. Janet was one of my former students. I don't know if you guys know that. I have to say that all the time because it was in that first Bible study. I'm like, whoa, I know that girl. She knew me. So that was but I'm very grateful for this church and this community and a place where I can feel like I have a purpose and make a difference. So thank you very much. That's why I stay. And I can ask you guys, why are you here and why do you stay? And anyways, now I have a little something from Mary Beth that she wrote that I'm going to read for you. Psalm 66 calls us to shout with joy to God, all the earth. Even after hardship, you have tested us, O God. The psalm say, you have brought us into the net. Faith isn't about avoiding trials. It's about trusting the ones who bring us through. Paul's word to Timothy echo that truth. Remember, Jesus Christ raised from the dead. The word of God is not chained. Even when Paul himself sat in prison, the gospel was still moving freely. His message to Timothy and to us is that faith doesn't stop when life gets hard. Whole faith endures. Today we heard two powerful stories. Can you get that, Sandy? Sandy reminded us the courage it took to plant this church with Reverend Terry, stepping out in faith when there was no building, no budget, only a dream. Then I shared how I came along later when the foundation had been laid and how the community helped me question, grow, and discover a deeper purpose. Together, these stories show us the full circle of whole faith, faith that plants and faith that preserves, faith that questions and faith that serves. Whole faith isn't part-time discipleship. It isn't something we switch on Sundays and off the rest of the week. Whole faith is available in every moment of life, in the grocery store, the classroom, the kitchen table, in moments of joy and late-night prayers when we wonder if God is listening. If faith only fills a few hours a week, it shrinks. But when faith fills all of life, our work, our relationships, our giving, it expands. That's why stewardship matters. Giving is not a separate activity from believing. It is one way we practice whole faith. Every dollar given, every act of service, every prayer worshiped keeps the word of God unchained and moving through this community. As we carry on Terry's legacy, let us remember that whole faith means giving fully, generously, joyfully, because we believe this church matters for us, for our children, for our neighbors, and Elizabeth, who still long to know that God's love is real. Whole faith planted this church, whole faith has sustained it, and whole faith, your faith, will carry it forward into the future God is preparing for us. So those are Mary Beth's words, and obviously, if they were my words, you would look at me and go, that is not you. You know, so everybody has their different way to express what they're feeling, and Mary Beth coming from the pastor kind of thing. But I never could have even imagined me standing up here doing this and being the lay leader of a church. I'm like, what? You want me to do what? Okay, I'll give it a try. So, anyways, I was going to say I'm not perfect. Come as you are. You're not. We're not perfect either. But my intent is always good. So, let's see. Where are we? I believe that that is the end of our sermon today. Allison, you can push stop now.